India's Me Too revolution is gaining momentum by the minute. On Wednesday, Suhail Seth and famous Tamil lyricist Vairamuthu joined the list of those who had been Me Too'd. And in a first for the movement in India, a woman comedian accused another fellow woman comedian. Kanis Surka has accused Aditi Mittal of sexual harassment. Meanwhile, one more woman came forward with her accusations against Union Minister and former journalist MJ Akbar on Wednesday. A total of 7 women have now spoken out against the parliamentarian. The latest is a journalist who was interning with the Asian Age back in 1994. The scribe alleged she was repeatedly molested by Akbar for years. Earlier in the day, the Indian Film and Television Directors Association issued a notice to actor Alok Nath and has also decided to boycott the actor after writer Vinta Nanda and actor Sandhya Mridul spoke up against him.
We have already drafted a notice which has been issued to Alok Nath because Vinta Nanda is also a very respectable member of IFTDA.
Meanwhile, Alok Nath's lawyer says his client is now in mental shock.
It's easy to make the allegations, that too of an incident which alleged to have taken place 19 years back. Now, this by itself shows that the entire allegations are false on the face of it.
Writer and journalist Sanjana Chauhan also exposed Chetan Bhagat and accused him of asking inappropriate questions laced with sexual innuendo in a conversation on WhatsApp.
So the first thing he asked me is, what is the wildest sexual thing you have done? And I have said that has nothing to do with my writing. What makes you so closed? Too many guys hitting on you because of what you write? Then I say, it's nobody's business. Simple. As for the men, I don't interact in those circles where people even think that way. And if I do, I shut them out.
On Mirror Now, we ask, with more and more women speaking up, is this the change the country needed? Let's debate.
As we continue to track the campaign of Me Too that sweeps across the country right now from industry to industry, I also want to acknowledge before we begin today's program that it is World Mental Health Day. And it's also worth at this point to stop and think about the mental health of the victims of sexual harassment, abuse and rape, what they go through and how they deal with what they go through. This movement couldn't have come at a more important time. And it cannot be more important than it is today to consider mental health. The questions we have to ask now are the questions that people are asking around the country. What will this campaign take us through? Is there any sort of legal binding to what is being said at this point? Is everybody just taking the girl's word for it? Are men in danger? These are the kind of questions that people are asking us, and we're going to patiently answer as many of these questions as we can. Joining me on the show today, Vinta Nanda, the writer and producer who has accused Alok Nath of rape. We also have Akash Banerjee, who is an author and a political satirist. Sapna Bhavnani is a celebrity hairstylist who has a story of her own to share. Ritesh Bhatia, cybersecurity expert. Kasturi is an actor. Sujay Kantawala is a lawyer. Trisha Shetty is a lawyer and the founder of She Says. A lot of the things we have to talk about today will also deal with what is sexual harassment and what is not. What is okay and what is not. Can something like this be proven in court 19 years down the line? And I want to start with Ms. Nanda. Ms. Nanda, first of all, I want to acknowledge your bravery. I want to acknowledge the power with which you have come out and you've told your story and you've stood by your story. On a day like today, which is also World Mental Health Day, and you dealt with some of that when you told your story on Facebook about the trauma that you had to carry for the last 19 years. What is your response right now to those who say that 19 years down the line, none of this can be proven, so it doesn't hold up in court?
Very frankly, it doesn't matter to me. I got a moment and I spoke up. In that moment when I spoke up and I wrote that piece and posted it on Facebook, I was only thinking of one thing, and that was now or never. Because the moment had come, I knew it was supportive, I knew that it was going to stand by me, and I knew that this was going to make me throw a weight of over 100 kilos that I had been carrying on my shoulders for the last 19 years. Many people told me the next day that, we had a sleepless night and we wept and we had a terrible, it was awful reading that piece because we've never read such a heart-wrenching piece. And, the only answer that came to my mind and I told them was that, I'm really sorry I've given you a sleepless night. I'm really sorry that I, made you cry. But I think I've slept the best in the last 20 years of my life last night. So at that moment, that was the only thing that came to me. And of course, the implications of what I had done is something I woke up to the next day, because they were all well-wishers, friends and family who were like shocked. And they came around and they said to me that, what are you going to do next? So I said, nothing. I've just brought it out and I've put it out there. And when I turned on to my Facebook and my social media, I saw that had gone into like a space, like gone thousands and thousands of tweets and retweets and thousands of shares and comments. And I said, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So that's when we started thinking. But before I could even like think, before I could even like kind of get to the next note in my own mind, I had support from the industry. Cinta was there by my side. They said that I should put in a complaint immediately so that they can take suo motu action. I have the Indian Film and Television Directors Association by my side now. I have the Script Writers Association by my side now. I have friends who are lawyers. So we are looking at what are the possibilities. Proof or not proof, I'm free of something that I carried on my shoulders for too long. And I think that was more important than anything else.
Ms. Nanda, my question to you is also this. A lot of people will ask at this point, why didn't you complain earlier? Why didn't you file a complaint? Rape is a very serious accusation. Why wasn't anything said earlier? What is your response to that?
So actually at the time when it happened, as you must have read, or whoever I'm speaking to, I'm sure must have read that post, it was a moment in time which was not very enabling for me. I knew it, as it is, I was at the lowest in my career because I had gone through a lot with what Dr. Chandra Prakash Dwivedi had done at ZTV. And subsequently, I was at a place where, and in any case, it was that time where it wouldn't have made sense to go and talk about it. All my friends and family advised me that I should not. I should push it behind me and just move on, and which is what I did. But I wasn't able to live with it. I was in a very terrible state, and it's World Mental Health Day, so I'll also say those were not those times in which going for counseling or reaching out for help was a very done thing. It was looked upon as something that there was a problem with you. So it was just me being brave, me being courageous, me being, walking forward and being sensible about what I needed to do next. But I wasn't unsupported. In that sense, my friends knew, my family knew, and everybody around rallied around me. Very soon I had bounced back. I was again making television shows, and then subsequently I made a movie called White Noise. And when I was making that film is a time when I got media attention again, and at that time I actually spoke up. I actually gave an interview in the Times of India, which got published to, it was the interview was given to Urvashi Asher.
Yes.
It got published in the Bombay Times, and I wrote a whole piece in the L'Officiel in which I described this entire ordeal that I had been through, and there was abject silence. Nobody, not a single soul came up to me and asked me that, are you all right? Did this really happen to you?
Right through the last 19 years, you've also had to deal with Alok Nath being hailed as the most sanskari, literally the most sanskari person in the country, being called Bauji, being called, he's sort of taken as a personalization of everything that is good. How had you dealt with that, and how did that make you feel?
So the initial years were pretty bad. I'm going to admit that till about 2008 and 2009, I was in a very, very crushed state. I was immobilized. I could not do anything in my life. And I would watch all that happening. I would watch all his success. And post my having come out on L'Officiel and Bombay Times, I had also stopped getting work. So I was jobless and I had nothing to do. But once I got a handle on my life and I was able to pull my socks up and just say, put it aside and say I have to compartmentalize that, otherwise my life is over here.
Yes.
So after that, it has really not mattered. Till about 2008 and 9, yes. After that, I would laugh at it. When those memes would come
Yes.
and things would come up, and me and my friends would just have a good laugh.
All right.
And me and my friends would just say, like, what a hoax.
Right.
Look at the hypocrisy.
I want to bring in
let it
bring in
pass,
Sujay
because by then I
Kantawala
got
at this
over it
point,
and
if
I
I may,
wanted to just also forget about
and open up this panel. Sujay, you are one of the people I understand who has reservations about the entire Me Too movement. Could you tell us what your reservations are?
No, I don't have any reservations as such for the moment, because I think if a crime has been committed, fair, and we have done so many debates earlier also on crimes against women and children. So I abhor and I hate it when there are crimes committed against women and children. But you see, what happens sometimes is this, that when you kind of don't follow the due process, and within a sort of a timeline, then actually the person who has been victimized, the chances to prove that offense in a court of law and following the procedure of evidence, etc., examination, cross-examination, production of witnesses, all that kind of suffers. So I feel that the timing, if an incident has taken place,
But
then the victim should
Sujay, in this
immediately,
particular case,
kind of,
Ms. Nanda says she doesn't care about it being proven in court. She just wants to be able to tell her story.
So that's fair enough. She is free to tell her story, and I sympathize with her. But as a lawyer, I feel that now that this movement has started, I think what we need is we need proper guidelines in place, so that in future, whenever such instances are found and that they take place, the victims can immediately access justice. And I would suggest in such a case there should be fast track courts. In fact, there should be special prosecutors to enable the victims to prove their case and move fast. And if there is a timeline for the case to be disposed of by the appropriate court, I think it will go a long way. So I don't feel that the movement as such, I'm not criticizing the movement, I don't oppose the movement. In fact, I'm supporting the movement. But I feel that it should be regulated. If it's not regulated and people start coming on social media and TV, it's going to be a slinging match. There's no end to that. Faye, what I'm saying, there'll be no end to it. It'll just die down after a couple of days, some new news will come, and we don't want that to happen.
Okay.
We want conviction to take place. If a crime has been committed, then the person who has committed
Trisha
the crime
Shetty wants
has
to
pay.
respond to
He has
you.
suffer.
Trisha Shetty is on Skype, so I apologize to my audience if the audio is a little bad, but we want to hear what she has to say. Trisha Shetty, go ahead, please.
I will speak loudly just in case of the audio issues. So let me say a few things. One, Sujay, I'm a lawyer as well, so I understand the need for due process. But let's be honest, the reason why we've come to a place of Me Too is because these women, these survivors, have gone through due process. They reached out to the relevant authorities who were supposed to take action, but they failed them. They tried to reach out to the workplace. They tried to reach out to their superiors. Very often they realized that the ICC was not established. Very often their complaints were dismissed. They went to police stations, as in the case of Tanushree Datta. She was misdirected. So survivors, to tell them that, this is not due process, the reason why we've come to Me Too is because women went through due process. They tried to complain officially, and every time they did, their voices were systematically silenced. These survivors did not find their voice now. They have been speaking up. They have been systematically silenced, dismissed, called as, this is a witch hunt. Even back then, the same reasons were used. And Sujay, if I may complete. Another thing, it is important to note that in India, there is no statute of limitations, which means that there is no period within which you have to complain. In America, there is. So in India, if a crime has happened to you at any given point of time, you can complain to the police station. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I do not want any survivor who is watching this to feel that if a crime has happened to her body years ago, she cannot take access to justice now. You have to explain the reason for delay. And thirdly, to say witnesses, to say, if they complained, it has to be official. We have to recognize that very often this is a matter of he said and she said. In most cases of harassment, there is no evidence. What, as women, are we going to put our camera on our headphones and walk around for the rest of our lives to document who's harassing us? More often than not, there is no evidence.
Yes.
So it is taking one person's case against the other and corroborating. Did the survivor speak to other people? Did she confess that something happened to her? So let's be honest. If I could just quickly say, we need to be sympathetic. Women have been speaking up. And for those people who are crying, witch hunt, for so long, women have not quietly, spoken up, been silenced, and we've been abused. At least provide us with a safe space to say we honor your voice. You are speaking up, we honor that. The system is not working for you, clearly, which is why they've had to take to social media. The point of Me Too is women coming together in solidarity and saying you ignored one voice, let us see you ignoring 10 voices. Speaking loudly and saying this happened to me too, and right now we demand for accountability. These women are not asking for the people to be penalized. They tried to go through the legal justice, it failed them. They are now asking society at large to hold these people accountable. Stop giving them jobs, stop covering up these crimes, and hold the perpetrators within their circles accountable to higher standards.
Sujay Kantewala, do you have a rebuttal before I move on to my next guest?
No, I mean, of course, Trisha has got very valuable insight and very valuable suggestions, which can be debated. But I would not agree as far as only naming and shaming people and hoping that they would not get jobs, etc. I don't think that's very practical. I think justice is when the person who has committed a crime is made to pay and made to suffer.
Okay,
that's
so
all.
here's a question, Sujay Kantewala. MJ Akbar now has there are 7 complaints against MJ Akbar. He continues to serve as a minister in the central government. Should he be removed from his position of power until the investigation is complete?
So, Faye, in such a case, I would not subscribe to the theory that more the people who complain, you believe that it's true. Because we are working in a system by which we follow rule of law. You could have a group of people who decide to virtually go after a certain person and malign a certain person, and that person may really be innocent. I know of many men who are in position of power and are soft targets, and they are facing serious problems. So one cannot generalize and make sweeping statements.
No, hang on. So are you saying that you believe MJ Akbar might be innocent?
And we need to empower the victim.
No, Sujay, are you saying that you believe MJ Akbar might be a soft target? Let me tell you, given the nature of the complaints received against him, he's hardly a soft target. In fact, the fact that the foreign minister did nothing, this government that believes in Beti Bachao has done nothing. It leaves us with very little hope of this due process you speak of.
Well, Faye, I'll tell you, as a lawyer, I would say that a due process has to be followed. Can you imagine the case when a person is really innocent and when there is a POCSO case levied against that person? I am defending people whom I know, and there is absolutely not a shred of evidence, and they are rotting in jail for some false cases lodged against them. So you have to take every case.
Right. So my question then is for those people who say these men have their reputations completely destroyed. MJ Akbar is going about his life as if nothing happened. Sapna Bhavnani, celebrity hairstylist with stories of Me Too to share on her own. Sapna, what is your reaction right now to what Sujay is saying?
Okay, first of all, I really apologize because I can't really hear too well. But I just have a thing about when it comes to also filing charges and not having evidence. This, like Trisha was also saying, it's very rare that there is going to be evidence. I mean, how do I don't know, like how do I go back 20 years ago and get you evidence of what happened to me? It's really rare. I mean, I don't even know how I would do that. Yeah, so that's why a lot of women opt not to incarcerate or not to go through the legal process. There are many reasons for that. First of all, in India, if you opt to go to the legal process, it is a mess. And who knows how long this is going to go on, right? So a lot of women don't even choose to do that. And secondly, the minute that you're a woman who stands up, automatically it's on you to prove that this really happened, and this has to change. I don't know how that is possible, but the fact being is that you are just held guilty when you come out and you say this happened to me. Now it's up to you to prove that it didn't happen to you, or to prove that it really happened to you.
Yes.
I mean, this has to change. So how does that happen? Yeah. How do we empower women to stand up and speak without having to go through this ordeal? What evidence can we give you? I mean, this is ridiculous. Like Trisha was saying, do we need to carry a camera with us all the time to kind of show you like this really happened to me? So there is some record. I mean, this is a bit ridiculous, right?
Yes.
And now
In
if there
fact,
are more than one, if there is more than one of us standing up and
yes, in
Go
fact,
ahead,
I just want to point out to our audience, unlike what's happening on a couple of other channels, we're ensuring right now that we focus on the accused and not on the complainant. We're not running visuals of the girls or the women who have actually written the complaints, because that's not important. Too often in our country, we spend too much time poking holes into the testimony of the victim. Why did she go? Why did she wear? Why did she say? Why did she stay? Those are not the questions we are asking. We're going to focus on the people against whom the complaints have been received. Akash Banerjee, which side of this argument do you stand with? On one hand, I've been told by several men that they are terrified at this point of the movement, that the movement has gone off the rails, that it's just become a name and shame. People are, bringing out their vendetta. What is your stand on the Me Too movement?
So, Faye, I come from a position of humility when you have such people on your show right now who have gone through so much. And it's been a tremendous learning process in the last 2 days, hearing the testimonials, seeing the anger. Faye, the lawyers may try to debate this on logic. This is not something that you can debate on logic. Whether the movement goes off the rails or whether it actually gets one of the members of the cabinet of the government, this can't be debated on logic, because the rage that one gets to see. I have reported on Nirbhaya. Faye, I can assure you the rage is 10 times greater than what you saw in Nirbhaya. The sheer anger and the suppressed voices, when they come out, they will come out in this way, and you can't reason with everything. So the scope of debate has gone down. What is worrying, however, and I'm very happy that that is being addressed already. What was worrying, why were men so scared, is that names were being dropped, random anonymous messages. I can tell you that one of the leading persons who are putting out this message, Sandhya Menon herself has now put it out, that she's not going to put out any more of those anonymous messages. So if you are going to keep a tab, if the people who are leading this movement on social media, keep it on a tab that they are going to collate various experiences. You see, one incident, 2 incidents can be rebuffed, but what if there are 5, 10, 8 pattern that comes in? That is when media houses also like yours, like websites get into the motion, and you get a situation where an MJ Akbar and a government is really stunned into silence, and we are getting to hear that some action is going to be taken. So I am not that worried now after 2 days, is because those anonymous messages are being proved false, and this movement is now slowly heading towards the direction where there is assimilation of information, and then it is being put out as a bit of a watertight case.
In fact, Akash, there's a reason why we have Ritesh Bhatia here. He's a cybersecurity expert, and we've been working on something today, and I want to share this with you. A lot of people have asked us at Mirror Now where we stand on this campaign. We stand clearly and solely, without question, with women like Miss Nanda and all of the other women who have shared their stories. We are not asking them questions. We stand with them. We stand for their right to justice. But that doesn't mean that we are a blind organization. That doesn't mean that we are shirking our responsibility and not doing our job. Every day in this movement, we are going to bring you cases where Twitter handles are being misused to misuse the movement altogether. Let's put it up on the screen. This is one handle we found today that we've been working on. It's called Suchi Leaks. It's specifically from South India, from what I understand. But this is my point here. The Me Too movement is about individual human beings, individual women sharing their experience. This happened to me on this date, in this place, I was behind the door, next to the door, on the bed, next to specific experiences. But what we have here in this particular case, and it says caution on the screen, because I want our audience to be cautioned towards what is happening here. On this, you have one particular Twitter handle that has done nothing but drop names of almost everyone in the South Indian film industry in the last 24 hours. Now, Ritesh has been kind enough to look into this. What have you found so far?
Yeah, so Faye, firstly, thank you so much. You brought this thing, because right now the way the movement is going, everybody wants to just pick up on the names and then target them. But I was like really very happy when you asked me to look into this, because you found it to be fake. And yes, on investigating it, I found out, it's just recently created. It was somewhere around the time when you started the campaign, and a day after, I think it was 29 September, 29 September, this particular person has created it. And this person, if you look at it, he or she is not following anybody, doesn't has many followers also. There are no likes, there are no retweets. The user definitely is from Tamil Nadu, because somewhere he or she has mentioned something in Tamil, and the entire focus, her entire targets are only and only South. Of course, there are the other
People
ones
in the
also,
South Indian industry. So
but South Indian industry ones.
So when you look at this, were you able to figure out whether it was a man or a woman, whether this person was sharing personal experiences, whether it was a bot or a human being?
It was definitely not a bot, because with bots you have certain things like auto capitalizations and all. So this was definitely not a bot. It was a human being, and whether it's he or she is very difficult, because it's too early to in the early stages of investigation. One thing is for sure, that this person has been, it's a human and wants to target only certain actors.
All right, so based on what Ritesh has told us, let me just take you through this. Can we put that back up on the screen, please? I just want to put that back up on the screen. This is one of the Twitter handles we've discovered. It's called Suchi Leaks. It is not Me Too. Me Too is not about sitting in your mother's basement and just tweeting nonsense about people. It is an honest, and it is a very, very serious movement where women are talking about their personal, their real experiences. This particular Twitter handle is not Me Too. I want to make that very clear, and we're going to bring you more and more of these stories that are attempting to derail this campaign, so that we can sift the truth from the lies and actually bring you as much of the truth as possible. Kasturi is an actor from Chennai. Kasturi, obviously this doesn't, this also goes to say that the South Indian film industry faced a fair amount of the casting couch, of sexual harassment, and perhaps an even slower realization of women's rights.
First of all, let me, I have to say this, I'm having absolute goosebumps here, sharing this space with Ms. Vinta Nanda. If you're hearing this, Ms. Nanda, absolute and total respect to you for doing what you did after all these years. I think for all the people who ask why now, why not earlier, people don't seem to realize how much strength and maturity one needs to get to even speak out. It's not something you get when you are in a vulnerable position. What you get when you're in a vulnerable position is harassment. To speak out against it, you have to be above it or beyond it or up to it. And absolute respect to Ms. Nanda for, I think, bringing the momentum to the Me Too movement in India. As far as South India is concerned, I think there has been several one-off incidents. We've had an actual Suchi Leaks, which was by an actual person called Suchitra. She was a singer. She is a singer as well. And it didn't go down very well. She was trying to expose some people with a fair bit of evidence, a fair bit of incriminating evidence. And I'll tell you how that finally wound up. I'm sure you haven't forgotten, Faye, how it wound up. At the end of the day, the people that she accused are nothing. Life hasn't changed for them. One of the women that she exposed through her leaks gained so much notoriety that people just flocked her. She's in every movie now. And that was after a very explicit video of her became viral. So, you know, sometimes things are an upside down life in this part of the world. Whereas Suchi, she had to close her account, claim that it was hacked. And basically, the last we heard was that she was trying to get treatment for her mental issues. I mean, it's that bad. We have to, not only do we victim shame people, we also name them, blame them, label them as mentally unsound. That's where it is. I think it's not exclusive to this part of the world. Obviously, Tanushree Datta and her attempts to be heard were trivialized and dismissed as she being on her period. So apparently this is something that men do, is if they get called out or if women try to get heard, then it must be the woman's fault. You know, you find something is wrong with the system, then it must be the woman's fault. The Me Too movement, like in Hollywood, like in Bollywood, what it has done in South India as well is that it has given a voice to people who had none before. Every single one of us has gone through some BS. And I say everyone, no exceptions. We've all gone through something or the other, to some degree or the other. And we've all sat without recourse. Because if we complain, if we take appropriate action, I wanted to take appropriate action on a tabloid that wrote BS about me. How do I? The first thing the lawyer tells me is, don't do it. It's not going to give you justice. It's just going to give you a lot of heartburn. Nothing's going to come of it. Today, Miss Nanda is not looking for justice. She's looking for closure.
For peace.
Me Too has given us closure. Me Too is giving India closure, not just in movies. Everybody in media, look at the number of journalists coming out. Hopefully, this is going to spread to every part and every sector of India, be it corporate or education or, you know, because we've been rocked by scandals and rapes and what not in every sector.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I just want to point out for those people who always ask, yes, Kasturi, for those people who always ask, why didn't she do something then? Why did she continue to sit there? Why didn't she walk away? What is wrong with her? I want to tell you that every single woman in this country has been groped on the street in the very least at some point. And whenever that happens, at whatever age we are, our cheeks become hot with embarrassment. We never react in the manner that we think we ought to have. And we spend days after that thinking, why didn't I slap him? Why didn't I react in a certain manner? Why did I just stand there? Why did I just freeze? Why did I continue as if nothing happened? It's impossible to judge the reaction of a victim of abuse. And it shouldn't be judged because there is no rule book. We don't teach our daughters what to do. It's impossible. And Akash, I saw your hand go up, and I have a few questions for Trisha Shetty before we move on. And I think these questions are important at this point. Trisha, people are asking questions, and I think we should clear them up. First of all, when a former employee files a complaint or writes about something that happened when the person was an employee with an organization, does that amount to sexual harassment, yes or no? And I have a list of questions, so we should go through them a little quickly. Does that amount to sexual harassment? Is the organization expected to do something about it?
See, when it comes to two specific acts, the POSH Act, which is Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace, and there is a similar act which prevents you from sexual harassment in higher educational institutes. Under these two acts, unfortunately, there is a statute of limitations that you must complain within 3 months from the date of last incident. So what that means is, if someone harasses me or subjects me to uncomfortable scenarios or says, I will not promote you if you don't do XYZ, and I rebuff it the first time, and then again a few months later he does it, then I have within 3 months from the date of last incident to report, unless the person harassing you is the main boss. If it's the main boss, then you can ask for an extension because the understanding is that the ICC in itself is answerable to the main boss. If it's the main
Yeah.
boss, then you can go to the LCC. So there is no statute of limitations when it is the main boss.
If it's the CEO.
Also another,
Yes.
correct. Also another caveat to this, is what act are you complaining under? Are you complaining under the POSH Act, which has the 3-month statute of limitations? But if it's a harassment that also is defined as harassment under the IPC, which is the Indian Penal Code, then all of this does not apply.
Yes.
Then you can go and complain even now. If you're an ex-employee, you can still go and complain to the police station.
Right.
So there
Tisha-
are two separate acts.
Tisha, next question. Former girlfriends or former relationships that then broke off or turned sour, and one partner then proceeded to stalk the other. Does that become harassment?
Yes, it undoubtedly does, because section 354D that defines stalking, there is no caveat. The definition of stalking is that if a person is following you virtually, digitally, or in person, stalking you, and you've let them know your intention that they have to stop following you and they still continue, that is defined as stalking. Now, there is no caveat to that definition under the IPC that says if this is a former boyfriend, if you've had any sort of relationship with him, then you cannot complain. So regardless of past relationship status, regardless of whether you've consensually been with this person or not, if the person is stalking you and you've made clear that you do not want to be followed, you can file a complaint.
Next question. People who take selfies with celebrities, if they feel that they were grabbed too hard, that they were held too close, complete strangers, does that amount to harassment?
It does. So under outraging modesty, if you feel that someone is behaving inappropriately with you, you have every recourse to complain. See, let me make one thing clear. As a survivor or a victim, if you feel that your body is being touched without your consent, if you feel you're being subject to harassment, it is your right to go file a complaint. The police station can never, even if you're filing the most flippant complaint, the police station can never tell you, we cannot register this complaint because it does not get defined as a crime.
Okay.
The police station must register the complaint,
okay.
and then they can dismiss it.
Is Trisha Shetty, is the question, is harassment gender neutral? So can women complain about women? Can men complain about women?
Unfortunately, harassment, of course, is gender neutral, but does the law of the land recognize it as gender neutral? Unfortunately not. There are two acts under which it is gender neutral, which is the POCSO, which is Protection of Children Against Sexual Offences. Here, the perpetrator or the victim, survivor can be...
If they are under the age of 18, yes.
If they're under the age of 18, and if the perpetrator can also be of any gender. So it's important to know that the victim survivor can be any gender, as well as the perpetrator. If a woman is sexually harassing a young boy, she can be charged.
Yes, but if both are adults, we right now don't have a gender neutral law. No, unfortunately, men cannot complain and women cannot complain about women.
There is one act which is protection, again, in higher educational institutes. So protection of sexual harassment in higher educational institutes is gender neutral. It is also friendly to the LGBTQI community, which is written in the law.
Yes.
So this law is completely gender neutral.
Last question. Yes, last question is about MJ Akbar. Now, we've had 7 complaints emerge about him. Sujay Kantawala did say when he was making his arguments earlier that just because there is a large number of complaints doesn't mean it needs to be taken any more seriously. But the truth is, in these investigations, concurrent complaints that actually concur with each other, and we'll see a lot of times the patterns are the same. The patterns of behavior are the same. Does this make the case against him stronger?
Of course it does. And most people, I mean, Sujay knows this, most people are repeat offenders. They don't stop with one case of harassment. So the whole essence, the premise of Me Too is one woman having the strength to come forward and then other voices resonating saying, yes, this happened to me too. So of course, this falls severely against him. It is incumbent upon BJP, the government to say pending investigation, this person should not be holding any position of power and authority. And let's make no mistake, when it comes to most cases of sexual harassment and rape, there is caveat that says it is an aggravated offense if the person abusing you is in a position of power and authority.
Yes, yes.
And who has more power and authority than MJ Akbar?
Let me now open this up to the rest of the panel again and bring the rest of the panel back in. I thank you for being very patient, but I felt like these were questions that should have been answered because everybody is asking them. Our audience, you can continue to ask us questions. Phone numbers at the bottom of your screen. Akash Banerjee, the panel is now open if you want to respond to something Trisha was saying. Akash, go ahead, please.
So, we were talking about certain laws. Now, workplace laws. These workplace laws can be there, they may not be there. Even if they are there, they might not be implemented. And one of the reasons why I came on the show today is to convey this message, because there is this whole debate about whether men should be really shutting up and listening or whether they should be participating. And I actually had shut up. But I remembered 5 years that I have spent in a corporate life before I started my own YouTube channel. And the joke, in a way of saying, the joke in our office was that you can be as lazy, as lethargic, as incompetent as you want. Nothing will happen to you. But if you indulge in any sort of financial embezzlement or any sexual harassment of any sort, you will find yourself at the door of the company within 24 hours. And that was an ethos that was followed.
Yes.
We didn't have to go to the complaints committee because it was known that the men and the women together in this office don't allow this to happen. So, small example, I can't understand for my life how can MJ Akbar allegedly call people to his hotel room at night. One instance of this sort in my previous organization, and no matter how high you were in the hierarchy, you would have been sacked, because that is clearly against any guidelines, any POSCO, any POSH regulation in any corporate. So clearly guidelines were completely thrown to the wind when these guys went about being the predators that they were. So it has to be men, it has to be women, it has to be companies that have to get the basic rules and regulations and laws in place in practice, not only in a booklet in the corner of the office.
All right, Sujay Kantawala, is there anything you want to rebut from what Trisha Shetty was saying to us, or anything you want to add to of what Trisha Shetty was saying with the specific questions that I asked?
No, I really appreciate how eloquently Trisha has explained the various facets and has answered all your questions, Faye. I compliment her for that. And I also appreciate what Akash just now mentioned. Therefore, to join issues with both my friends on the debate, that is what I'm saying, Faye, that this Me Too movement should not just become another movement, like you should take it very seriously, but you should see it to its logical end. And I feel that unless we all come together, have a change of mindset, like after Nirbhaya, how many efforts were made. Unless we do that, this Me Too movement will not succeide. And we want it to succeed.
Sujay, I actually have a couple of more questions that are now coming in.
We don't want to wait for...
Yes, Sujay, forgive me. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to ask you the questions now. We talked about former employees and former girlfriends, but people who don't work in that organization. So, for example, a journalist speaking to a writer, or a journalist conducting an interview with someone, you're not in the same organization, and that person then harasses you, does that amount to harassment, Sujay? Yes or no?
Yes, harassment is not necessarily only physical harassment, Faye. It can also be other types of harassment, that is emotional. It could be also harassment relating to not giving you your promotion, to shaming you. Those types of also aspects are also harassment. But therefore, Faye, that's what I'm saying, that as Akash rightly said, that unless everyone in an organization thinks as one cohesive collective unit, and realizes that we have to maintain, our dignity.
Here's another question.
Costs.
Yes, Sujay, forgive me for interrupting you. Trisha says, the woman should have rebuffed or said no or rejected the advances of the individual who was harassing them. Is this rebuffing or rejection part of evidence? So if I feel like someone is harassing me and I sent that person a message or an email saying, please stop, should I make sure that I save a copy of that message or email, because that is now evidence?
Yes, in fact, this is the theory and concept of denials and no denials. For example, if a person places a fact on record and if it is not rebutted or denied, then it is deemed to be admitted. So it's a very valuable suggestion for all your viewers who are watching this debate, that every such shred of evidence that you have should, of a primary nature or a secondary nature, direct or indirect, please save it, because you may need to use it and marshal that piece of evidence when you proceed by following due process.
All right, I have one last question for Ms. Nanda.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Faye, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, I did not say should have. The law, because I don't want to make it, I don't want to victim blame in any way. The law says under section 354D, stalking, any man who follows a woman or attempts to contact such women to foster personal interaction repeatedly, despite a clear indication of disinterest by such women. So that is what I'm referring to, despite a clear indication of disinterest. That's what the law meant.
Ms. Nanda, I have a quick question for you, and this is in reaction to the questions we are getting of why did she stay, why didn't she walk away, why she should have slapped him. These reactions, people always judge the reaction of the victim. In your case and in the story that you've shared, it says you say you continued to work with this individual, with Mr. Alok Nath, whom you've accused. You say that you actually visited his home again after that. I want you to share with our audience the sort of the freeze that our brains arrive at when something like this happens, and why a victim's or a survivor's reactions at that point should not be matter of debate.
I mean, the entire depth of what I have written and what I have confessed lies in that part of what I have said, that I went back to him. The fact that I had not, the conspiracy of silence is very, very dangerous, and the consequences of it are even worse. So when you are silent and when you have not been able to express yourself and you haven't been able to come out and you have been, suppressing the entire piece inside you, and you're part of the same industry. In the case of Bollywood, it's like one big corporation. So where are you going to go? So the whole thing was that, okay, put everything behind you and move on and continue with your career. And certainly the entire next job that I was doing, he came through the casting route. So I could only object to him on a very surface level and say that I don't want this guy to be in the show that I'm directing and writing. But more than that, it was not my place to really say more, because he was also a professional in the world. But when he started creating a very threatening environment at my next job, where I was working with him and directing him, he had turned me into a mouse on my own sets. So at that point in time, I was toying with the idea of moving on, but I needed that job. I needed the money that came with that job. So I continued with it, and one fine day he called me and I went to his house, and I actually went to my rapist's house and got violated with him again, allowed myself to do that. And I have written that, and I've been brutal upon myself. I also wanted to say to Mr. Kantawala that the victim, when they are abusing, when they are naming accusing the person who has victimized them, are also shaming themselves at that point in time. So it's not something very easy that you come out and do. So at that time, when I did that and I went through that, is when I actually went and quit my job, whatever may be the monetary consequences of that to me. But it took me all of that to go and do it to myself.
Absolutely, Ms. Nanda.
So I put that whole thing there because I want everyone, especially in my industry, to know that
Ms. Nanda, I want to, like I began the show, I'm going to end this show thanking you for your bravery and telling you that we stand with you here on this channel with all of the support that you will need from us in the media, because of the bravery with which you have told your story and because of the example you have set for women across the country who have possibly also buried so many similar experiences and not said a word. I want to thank my panel right now when I wrap this up, but I promise my audience again, we are not going to stop here. We will continue this conversation. We will continue to answer questions like we have done today. I just want to bring up some of the things that we have learned. First of all, what is sexual harassment? No touching, no asking of sexual favors, no sexual connotation, no gestures, no communication, no messages, no emails. All of this amounts to harassment. Now, like the lawyers, the two lawyers on our panel were telling us that whether you are a former girlfriend, a former employee, someone I have just met, someone I happen to work with only for a short period of time, there is no limit to any of this. All of this continues to be harassment, and all of these women can complain Unfortunately, the sexual harassment laws as they stand right now are not gender neutral, so men cannot complain. And that is something we need to look at very clearly as a country. The last thing, of course, is proof of refusal and rejection. If you have sent someone a message, first of all, to women, be clear about the no. Say, listen, I am not interested, stop contacting me, and save that message. That message is now evidence. We'll continue to answer questions. Feel free to send in your questions to the channel. You can reach us on email, you can reach us on Involve, you can reach us on Twitter. Thanks for watching.